Good afternoon. Welcome to the 330 Sports Show. I'm Justin Coffin. Across from me, Joe Danier. In the back, BJ Lisco. We appreciate you watching this episode and this broadcast on Youngstown Studio. Today is Tuesday, February 4th, 2025. Obviously, this is Super Bowl week. You got the Chiefs and the Eagles. But leading up to that, of course, the Browns, the only way we're going to make it to the Super Bowl anytime soon is Media Day. And Myles Garrett announcing that he would like a trade away from the Cleveland Browns. So, Joe, you and I are lifelong Browns fans, much to our chagrin. Your immediate thoughts when you heard that news yesterday?
That is your number one fear when you've got somebody who's sticking it out and know they deserve a Super Bowl and are watching the administration make good decisions or not. And it's our fear. Like this is the inevitability.
Let me ask you this. Like just in the my first Browns memory I can go back to was like Bernie Kosar, Webster Slaughter, Eric Metcalf, Kevin Mack, all that in the late 80s. That's when I first became like a Browns fan that I can remember stuff happening. When your first memories of being a Browns fan, whenever that might be. So if you're an older listener, maybe that goes back to even Jim Brown or to like Paul Warfield or somebody like that. Or maybe a younger listener that maybe their first inclination of the Browns was like Tim Couch or Courtney Brown or Johnny Manziel or whoever. So me and you are similar ages. So in your history of being a Browns fan, in the time you've been alive, where does Myles Garrett rank on all-time Cleveland Browns on like your favorite list?
The most comparable, I would say Joe Thomas.
Okay. Yeah.
Someone who stuck it through, could have gone anywhere else in his career.
Yeah.
Talent-wise was on par.
Yeah.
Joe
Thomas, even if I remember right, had the opportunity to get traded to Denver later on in his career when Peyton Manning was there and turned down a trade. But yeah, I think that's pretty comparable. Two guys that are maybe the best at their position, probably maybe the best offensive player outside of like Otto Graham or Jim Brown on the offensive side of the ball. Myles Garrett is, without question, in my opinion, the best defensive player the Browns have ever had, maybe will ever have in the near, next 50 years. That's a lot of football left, but Myles Garrett is right up there in terms of like maybe top 5 Cleveland Browns of all time. And, you go back to, I believe he was drafted in 2017. So he's been with this team now, 8 years. He's getting up there. I think he's right around 30. So in the NFL, you don't stick around for these, usually you're not playing into your mid to late 30s. You usually have a prime from like, let's say 25 to 32. Myles Garrett is sort of at that later end of his prime. And he's probably thinking, hey, father time, undefeated, never loses. I'm getting towards the end of the best I can give day in and day out. And if the best I can give isn't good enough and it's going to be playing on a 3-14 football team, I do want out. So do you blame him for wanting out, or do you think, hey, or do you kind of side with him? What do you think?
It's a coin flip because I can see where he's coming from. Like you start experiencing some foot injuries and like if your career ended today, would you be going out on a high note or a low note? And if you see the trajectory, they're stuck with Deshaun Watson for a couple years now.
2 more years. Yeah.
2 more years. So like there's still some pain to come.
Yeah.
So if I can get out, get a paycheck, maybe get a Super Bowl, I'm taking it, and you cannot blame that dude.
So yeah, I am in 100% agreement. I think Myles Garrett has the absolute right to request a trade. The Browns don't have to honor it. In my opinion, they should honor it because he's done everything he needs to for this team. He has given, he's made some mistakes along the way, that car accident where he was driving recklessly. And, when you're a younger person, you do some dumb things, but he's not out like, in domestic disputes or like, getting in trouble at massage stuff, or you know what I mean? Like he is by all accounts, a really good guy on and off the field. So, and his production,
and he's your leader. Like that's the biggest part that he adds to that defense.
I agree. He is your leader. I have heard mixed accounts of he's kind of a quiet leader, though. He kind of just goes about his business. And I don't know how strong of a locker room leader he is. And I'm not, he probably is, but I have heard things to the contrary of that too. But he's not going to take away from your team is what I'm saying.
So who should be? Let's just say he bails out. He gets traded to whatever.
Yeah.
Who's your next man up for your leader?
The next guy up, I would say, would probably be like Joel Bitonio, who's probably going to retire if Myles Garrett gets traded too, because they're both in the same, it might just be like a house of cards or dominoes, where it's like once one goes, the next. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're the Browns. I don't want to call you Andrew Berry because I don't know if you're going to be around too long. There's something to be said about Andrew Berry too, because it's like, if he kind of helped create this mess, do you want him resetting the deck and then,
nope.
Picking
more
the new
same?
players?
Hell no.
So here's my question then. Do you just like cut ties with the whole front office then? Because otherwise you might be in a lame duck situation, where it's like, well, do you want Andrew Berry trading Myles Garrett, accumulating these picks? The team's not going to be that good again. You're probably going to be picking up high again. Do you want that guy making the picks and building this roster if eventually he's just going to get fired in a year or two anyway?
So let's just say Andrew Berry comes out and says, we made a big mistake with Deshaun Watson, and lays all the cards on the table and says, like, we were banking on X didn't come to fruition. Big mistake. Then I give him a chance, because at least he has the intellect and the honesty to be able to lay that out. But if he stands true to his guns, like, you got to get rid of him. You got to clear the deck. The
Browns are very good at saying a lot of things without saying anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? And Andrew Berry is a very, very intelligent human being.
For sure.
He's Harvard educated, all that stuff. But you're right.
Has anybody taken responsibility for Deshaun Watson?
You know what?
A single person.
I would love to hear that too. Wouldn't that be so refreshing? Because I will say this to the Browns' credit. They took a swing. In the AFC, you got to get by Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud now. That's just 4 guys right there. And then, there's a whole long list of other guys that are coming up and, the next guy. We all know without a quarterback, you might be able to make the playoffs or have a decent season, but you're not going to win the ultimate prize. You're not going to get to the Super Bowl.
But he could have been, like, if that Deshaun Watson from the Texans arrived in Cleveland, it would have been completely different.
And that's
story.
what I'm saying. They took their swing.
Yep.
They swung and missed hard. Remember those Bugs Bunny commercials where he swings and misses 3 times? It was like they struck out on one pitch. They took their chance and it failed. But all
right. So time machine. You go back to that day.
Yes.
You make an initial
offer.
offer.
March 18th, 2022.
So he turns you down and says, I'm not going to Cleveland. So you're like, okay, we're not going to make an over offer here. We're going to move on to the next. Do you think the Browns would be solid by now if they took a free agent somewhere and just manager kind of thing?
Everything, as Cam Newton would say, hindsight's 50-50. As I would say, hindsight's 20-20. But knowing where you're at now, it's so easy to say yes. You go back, you let Baker Mayfield rest and heal up, and you build around him. And Baker Mayfield, I don't think was ever the guy that was going to take you to the next level. He was a guy that was going to keep your team. He could be a winning quarterback on a good team. I don't think he was ever the guy to get you to a Super Bowl or over that hump.
Right.
So,
but by now,
to answer your question, if you put Baker Mayfield with this roster and you plugged in first round wide receiver, first round defensive end across from Myles Garrett, first round offensive line, then yeah. And then, and then you don't have all this off the field drama and like players wanting out because Deshaun Watson was treated differently than the rest of the players. And, I can't blame the Browns for trying to go get that elite level quarterback. But what I can blame them for is not seeing that what a mess they didn't know. I don't think the shitstorm they were going to get when they got him. They thought, yeah, it'll blow over, maybe like a Ben Roethlisberger situation back when he had his, thing in like 2009. Then he had a good rest of his career. It kind of blew over. It was like a bad month for him of PR. For the Browns, it's been a bad 3 years of PR and continuing, and it's only going to get worse and worse and worse until that guy is gone. Now, I don't think Deshaun Watson is ever going to play another snap for the Cleveland Browns, but you're still in that purgatory of having to pay him whatever it is on the cap. I don't know. And they might get some relief if he tore that Achilles again doing non-football rehab stuff. So I don't know the situation of that, but I will just say the main culprit of this, there's two main culprits. One, is it the Haslams for saying, hey, go get me that guy and I'll pay him guaranteed money? Or two, is it Deshaun Watson knowing he stunk? He hasn't lived up to his ability. What do you think?
I'm telling you, like from a business sense. Okay, let's do Fast and Furious analogy.
Yeah.
All right. So Paul Walker comes up and he's like,
rest in peace.
I'm going to sign over my car if I lose to you.
Mm-hmm.
But not only that, I'm going to sign over my girlfriend and my house and the next 3 years of my future. All right, so half of it's like you're really confident. So if you make that bet, you got to be fucking sure that you're going to come through on that because you're done with racing if it goes south. So if nobody looked at what if he, is a flash in the pan and he doesn't come through for us? What then? If everybody's like, oh, he better work out kind of thing.
Yeah.
What is just dumb management?
Yeah. I mean, I can't agree more. It's bad all around. There's no winners in this because I said earlier to you before we even started, or I was talking to BJ and said, it's like, okay, the 3 first-round draft picks you gave up, like maybe I think there was a second rounder in there and like on maybe a 4th rounder, but you're also giving up on Baker Mayfield, who again, think what you want. I'm not a Baker bro. I really liked him and I appreciated him and what he did for the franchise. I don't think he was, like I said before, to get you the guy, but that's, irregardless.
Do you want some bourbon, by the way? This is a bourbon day.
I'll take just a tiny bit, tiny scotch. Well, we're going to drink our feelings a little bit. Also, you're giving up on Nick Chubb and the best of his prime. You're giving up Myles Garrett, the best of his prime. Joel Bitonio, the best of his prime. Denzel Ward, the best of his prime. So our best players, I'll take whatever you're drinking. How about that?
Buffalo Trace, Weller, and Sazerac. You cannot go wrong.
I'll do Buffalo Trace. Right. Yeah. I mean, Buffalo Trace, I believe, owns those other 2 brands, so you cannot go wrong. And we need to get them as a sponsor, especially as a Browns show, and we need to drink our sorrows away. But the Cleveland Browns are in a bad spot because of Deshaun Watson, but also because of the decision makers that led to that trade. So it has caused a whole heap of trouble, a whole bunch of problems, and I'm just gonna read.
We have no slides, by the way, so you have to describe everything.
That's okay. Can I read Myles Garrett's statement though? He said, "As a kid dreaming of the NFL, all I focused on was the ultimate goal of winning a Super Bowl, and that goal fuels me today more than ever. My love for the community of Northeast Ohio and the incredible fan base of the Cleveland Browns has made this one of the toughest decisions of my life. These past 8 years have shaped me into the man I am today. While I loved calling this city my home, my desire to win and compete on the biggest stages won't allow me to be complacent. The goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton. It has always been to compete for and win a Super Bowl. With that in mind, I have requested it to be traded from the Cleveland Browns." Myles Garrett. That last line in there above the "with that in mind," the goal was never to go from Cleveland to Canton, right to the Hall of Fame. That was a direct shot at Andrew Berry, who put that in his line. So it almost makes me wonder, is there more behind the scenes we don't know about? Because the Browns were featured along with the Steelers, the Bengals, and the Ravens on Hard Knocks. And Myles Garrett, by all accounts, said, the Browns kind of showed me a plan, and we're not that far away from being back to a winning team. So I don't know what the answer is. I really don't. But to me, and I know there's going to be Browns fans that say, I'm out. This is it. This is the final straw. We all know that's probably not true. We've been through hell and back and continuing to go through hell and back. But it is what it is. But to me, trading Myles Garrett is better than just putting a Band-Aid on a situation and saying, maybe Myles Garrett gets you a couple more wins throughout the year. But like, if you're a 5-12 football team, is that much better than being 3-14? You know what I'm saying? So wouldn't you rather trade him, clear the deck, lose out, whatever it might be? And no one wants to lose. No one wants to go through, punt on the 2025 season. You don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. Maybe it'll free up our Sundays a little bit more because we won't care as much. But at the end of the day, if you're a Browns fan, you just want to see a winner out there. And that's all the fans of the Cleveland Browns have simply asked for from this team. So the Haslams, Kevin Stefanski, Andrew Barry, Paul DePodesta, all the front office people, no one's trying to fail, but we're also making some huge mistakes here. And somebody has to be accountable for that, and somebody has to answer the bell. So I don't know what the answer is, but trading Myles Garrett, to me, and you have that second pick, maybe you get another high first rounder, maybe you get another first rounder next year. I don't know what the answer is, but you're not going anywhere simply without a quarterback. Well, I don't care how good he is.
Two scenarios.
Yeah.
So let's just say they're like, okay, Myles, like we are aware of our situation and we know what holes we have to fill. One more year will give us your heart again. We're going to prove to you that all along we made a mistake and we paid the repercussions, but we're going to give you this year.
Yeah.
Let him out of his contract after this year, but give it one go.
Well, he's under a contract for 2 more years.
Right. So this year's the freebie.
Okay.
We're going to hold you the contract, but if we can't come through for you this year and show you that we're on our way to a Super Bowl, the second year we're going to acquire, or we're going to allow you that trade.
Okay.
Versus getting rid of him, getting some pretty good trade capital for it, getting someone to fill in that void, and then going after a quarterback to say, all right, you know what? We've been embarrassed.
Yep.
Our number one defensive player bailed on us because he has no vision of the future that says we're going to win a Super Bowl in here. We're going to show that, use that as a motivating factor.
Let me ask you this. Do you think the Browns compete to win the AFC next year?
No.
Me either.
We're 3 years away. So no matter what, we're 3 years away.
So my answer to that is simple then. If you do not think the Browns can compete for a Super Bowl next year, why not get rid of him now and get what you can? Because next year his contract won't be as valuable. You're probably not going to get as much. And if you have an unhappy player in the building, it's like, but
he'll play with heart. Myles Garrett.
He'll give everything he can when he's on the field. Yeah, there's 100%.
But you get JOK back there.
Maybe we don't know his status. That dude might never play football again because of his neck injury. So the Browns have a whole heap of trouble here.
But okay, hypothetically, you bring a quarterback in that is maybe not, somebody you fetched in free agency or maybe somebody you drafted.
Yeah.
But you fill in some of the holes that were due to injuries last time, and you get not a Super Bowl, but you get something that has some life into it. 11 wins would be great.
Hey, I think we were just there 12 months ago. The Browns were 11-6 last year.
You bring Flacco back and you bring JOK back, and it's the same setup. It's the same team.
With or without Myles Garrett.
Right? Oh.
With or without. That makes a huge difference.
It does too.
Because he affects everything you do on the back end as well, because that defense, that secondary, which was great in the past, was able to not cover as long because he could get after the quarterback.
Right.
So
but so you're saying his value right now
I think it's
releasing him is greater than not
trading him right now would be
100%.
the best, sometime before the draft, let's just say. That way, and if I had it my way, I would want as much capital in next year's draft as I could get. So in the 2026 draft, which sounds crazy to think, because
Browns fans are looking for 2026.
This draft is good. There's a lot of quality football. There's a lot of really high-end talent in this year's draft, but the quarterback position, so you got Cam Ward from Miami, you got Shedeur Sanders from Colorado, Deion's son. You got Jackson Dart.
Well, you can allow that to happen.
The Browns, based on things I've heard, that would be their number one quarterback on their radar because he would run Kevin Stefanski's system the best. He is very accurate. He's a very accurate quarterback. He had bad offensive line play at Colorado. He's been through all the spotlight and stuff because of just simply his dad. And Colorado turned into like a media circus. He does come with some red flags. Is he the best quarterback, in the draft? I don't know. But like if he was in last year's draft, I heard people say he would be the third quarterback in last year's draft.
His dad hates you. He hates everything about you.
Me?
All right, maybe not Browns. You. The Browns.
Oh, I had a Deion Sanders Cowboys jersey when I was a kid. And I actually love that guy when he was on the field, but I don't know if Shedeur Sanders is the answer. I really don't. But I do know that putting a rookie quarterback in a bad situation is not ideal. And that is very Browns to do that.
How is that shitty that we have the number 2 pick in the draft and there's not like an ace quarterback to throw on?
And sometimes there are, sometimes there aren't.
I hate that.
You go back, to the 1 year with Kenny Pickett was the only first rounder. A couple years ago, the Steelers took him. That was a bad quarterback draft, but last year, you had the kid from Chicago out of USC. You had Jaden Daniels, who took Washington all the way to the NFC Championship game. By the way, Washington had the second pick in the draft last year. So if you nail your pick, it can turn around quickly. And Drake May went third to the Patriots last year. They seem to really like him. So I don't know. I really don't know. But whatever you do with that second pick, you got to nail it. Like if it's a quarterback, he has to be good. Like he doesn't have to be great, but he's got to be really good. It can't be a Brandon Weeden flame
Andrew
out.
Berry to make that a decent pick.
Andrew Berry hasn't had a first round pick since 2021. And that was Greg Newsome, who's been a starter, but not a great player. And then before that, it was Jed Wills, who no one likes Jed Wills. So, and you had Andrew Wirfs there Tristan Wirfs there, who was, went after him, who's been like an perennial all-pro for Tampa Bay that went after him. So I don't know. I don't know. And I don't know if the Browns know. And but truthfully, you, me, whoever's watching this show could probably have made better decisions than the Browns front office over the past 3, 4, 5 years. Have they made some good things? Yes, but their moves, especially the big ones, are very questionable over the last 4 years.
I trust your mom's insight more than anybody else.
Yeah.
Like she would have never made this decision.
Well, so her least favorite player is Deshaun Watson.
Every other decision would have been better. It could have been the worst decision, and it would still be better than the decision that they ended up making.
I agree. And literally, there are some people, they don't watch college football that much, but they can identify that's a good player, that's not. And there's way more to it than just watching a game on TV or reading one article and saying, oh, that guy's the way to go. It's, these scouts and stuff get into the weeds. They get to know what they do off the field. They get to know their pasts and their intellect and stuff like that. So they do have a lot more insight than we do. With that said, I think if you're telling me it's like this guy or this guy or this guy, I'm like, we could probably have just as high of a percentage chance of picking the right player for the Cleveland Browns as some of the front office does.
So do you as a Browns fan, are you insulted when a kicker that has problems with massage parlors
Justin Tugger
gets kind of connected with the Browns culture of being some touchy-feely people.
I mean, that's the Ravens' problem to deal with now. And maybe he was pulling his field goals left and right. He was
well
he was pulling them. But yeah, Justin Tucker, or maybe we'll just call him Justin Tugger now. He was definitely missing left or right this year, and maybe that was the way he laid on the table a little wrong. I don't know if it like didn't center his chi, before that. But yeah, he's got some issues. The Browns got some issues.
But now you're synonymous with quarterbacks that have, checkered histories.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of the NFL franchises were peeved at the Browns because they gave them all that guaranteed money. Because the Haslams, unlike some NFL owners, the Haslams have a lot of liquid cash that they can just. So if you don't know how NFL contracts work, usually you have to put about half of that money in escrow that you're guaranteeing. So Haslams would have had to put about $115 million in escrow, like in an account to prove that they show they can pay that. Whereas like the Bengals owners, they don't have that much money. Like I believe a lot of NFL owners' money is actually tied up within the franchise. The Haslams own, the Pilot Flying J, so they have a lot of money. They're very wealthy, but that doesn't mean you're good decision makers when it comes to football. So it's kind of like whoever you want or don't want as president. Like let's say hypothetically, I'm going to just say Team A or Team B for president. So if you're Team A for president and Team B wins, you still have to root for the country to do well if President B is doing well versus President A. You know what I'm saying? It's like, no matter if you like that person or not, you have to root for them. That was the best analogy I could come up with on the spot.
It doesn't make it easy
when
they make decisions and you're like,
that's why I'm saying it's like, own the team, let that endless source of money keep flowing in, live your life to the extreme, keep buying up stuff. And Haslam's, to their credit, they do spend a lot of money, more than any other franchise in the NFL last year, I believe. But let the football people do their jobs. Don't meddle in the decision making. We can go all the way back to Josh Allen versus Baker Mayfield. And yes, Baker Mayfield was a good quarterback, but if the Browns would have drafted Josh Allen, that's one of those, like, would they be on the Buffalo Bills level right now where they're competing to win the AFC every year? Or would they have, ruined Josh Allen's career by not developing him correctly? No one knows because, that's a hypothetical, but it is what it is. So I don't know.
But when you're the butt of jokes like that, where you invite the deplorables into your camp, like, it's hard to recruit the best of the best, and it works against you eventually.
Yeah, and the NFL is different than just about any league because, one, there's a salary cap, but two, the players don't dictate generally their contracts and where they go and stuff like that. Usually the teams are very in control of the players, unlike the NBA where players can sort of more control their destination. They can force teams into making trades because they're one of 12. And in the NBA, there's only 20 elite guys, whereas in the NFL, there's a little bit more. The contract situations are just very different. So Deshaun Watson holds a lot more control than, let's say an Anthony Davis who got traded this weekend, and that's a whole other situation. But I really don't know what the Browns do from here. They have a lot of decisions to make, and as a Browns fan, you just got to hold your breath and hope they don't F it up. That's
give me your highest probability of what happens.
All right. So now, to go back even just 2 years ago, Lamar Jackson was requesting a trade from the Baltimore Ravens because they weren't going to give him the contract he wanted. Now, is this a contract dispute and ploy? I don't think so. I think the Browns I think they would pay Myles Garrett whatever he wants. Now I think he makes about $9 million less per year than the highest, pass rusher in the league. But that's because contracts, start growing every time they somebody new sets the bar every time they set a new contract. So eventually Myles Garrett, the next contract he signs, like I said, he's signed for 2 more years. I think it's $25 million a year, which sounds like a lot, but I think the highest guy is one of the Bosas who makes like 34. So yeah, the Browns would be fine to match that 34 a year. I guarantee they'd be fine paying him that, because he's, if not the best defensive player in the league, he's top 3. And I don't think so. I don't think it's that. So I think, to answer your question, I think the Browns, what needs to happen? This is just what I think needs to happen, or are you saying what I think should happen?
Give me both.
All right. So what I think should happen is the Browns should trade Myles Garrett. Honor his request. It sucks, but you're also expediting the rebuild process. Joel Bitonio probably retires. You probably got to start drafting offensive linemen, bringing in new guys, younger guys. Maybe you trade Denzel Ward, maybe try to accumulate more draft picks. So the Browns might have to really try to flip a lot of their veteran players and get back what they can. They're going to be.
Conklin's not on the roster. I'm cool.
Conklin played well by the end of the year.
I know, but still.
I'm going to show you a hypothetical.
I need a younger Nick Conklin.
Jack Conklin. We'll see about Jack Conklin.
Did I say Nick?
Nick Chubb?
Nick Conklin.
His
name's Nick Conklin.
Okay. Well, either way, Conklin. We know who you mean.
Yeah.
So, either way, the Browns have to decide on some of their veterans, some of their free agents, some of their younger guys. They need to establish who's going to be the cornerstones of this team going forward for the next 3 to 5 years. Really, because your roster turns over probably 25% in every year, and a lot of those bottom third of the guys turn over a lot. But it's like, if you can establish your core, 10 guys, then maybe 5 offense, 5 defense, whatever, then you could build with those guys going forward. I don't know, outside of a few guys, who would be those cornerstones for the Browns right now. And this was a team we talked about having the best roster possibly in the NFL coming into last season. This season, there appears to be a lot of holes. So without this trade request, you would think Myles Garrett would be an untouchable guy. Probably Denzel Ward would probably be one of your other best players. I really don't know. Maybe Jerry Jeudy on offense, your wide receiver. Maybe one of your offensive linemen. I don't know. Like Njoku, I don't know. It's like, who on this team is untouchable? To me, if Myles Garrett's not, everybody's on the table. So I don't know. I think the Browns, I hate to say this, but the best way to get better quick is to suck for a while, and then hopefully you hit on a lot of these draft picks and trade some of those guys, recoup some assets. And then you look at the Houston Texans. How'd they get good fast? They fleeced the Browns, and they got all those draft picks real fast, and suddenly they're in a playoff spot every single year now. How did Washington get so good so fast? They drafted a quarterback and they nailed the pick at number 2 last year, and they moved on. I don't think there's a Jaden Daniels in this year's draft, so I don't think the Browns are going to do that. But there's an Abdul Carter from Penn State who he's a great defensive end, and maybe you get him at number 2, or maybe you trade back and recoup picks. I don't know exactly what the answer is.
What's your guess for what you get from Myles Garrett?
I would think the negotiation for me as a general manager of the Cleveland Browns would be that it starts at minimum 2 first-round picks. And if you don't want to give me a second first-round pick, you got to give me 1 and a young quarterback. And it has to be a good young quarterback. I'm talking I know people are split on J.J. McCarthy, but Minnesota has J.J. McCarthy, who they drafted last year. But he got hurt. And Sam Darnold played all last year, who's now a free agent. Minnesota has to decide, do we keep Sam Darnold, trade for Myles Garrett, and then we're off and running? Or do we keep this young guy around? And, so I would start minimum a young quarterback that's almost ready to play and a first-round pick, or 2 first-round picks and maybe some other picks sprinkled in there. That would be my minimum asking price.
That's high.
It is high, but you want the best defensive player in the league, you got to pay for it.
Yep.
And the Browns don't have to trade him either. He's under contract. He can't just, he can't just walk out of the building. And if he doesn't play, he doesn't get paid. So, the Browns hold the cards here. And theoretically, he can play out his next 2 years, and then they could franchise him in that 3 years from now. So the Browns really do have a lot of leverage, even if people might not think they do. So what would you do?
I hold him under contract. I would trust my drafting ability, and I would build around him and show him a year worth of, you got to buy him back in, because if his heart's not in it, like, he's going to play, but he's not going to believe that you can get to a Super Bowl unless you show him.
Yeah. And if I'm Myles Garrett, and I've spent the last 8 years with this team, and you had, the Pittsburgh playoff win, and you played in the playoffs just last year, but he's only been to the playoffs 2 out of his 8 years. And, the Browns have had some decent teams over that time, but they've had more losing teams than winning teams in that time. So if I know I am the best player on the field when I'm on the field, and the rest of my team and the people making the choices to who plays on that team are screwing it up, I'd want out too. Myles Garrett is under contract, and he has to play under that contract. But the Browns don't technically owe Myles Garrett anything except for what they owe him on his contract. But the Browns, if they want to do right by Myles, and when I say do right by him, trade him to a contender, Myles Garrett doesn't have a no trade clause where he can say, oh, I want to go to the Philadelphia Eagles next year, or I want to go to the Minnesota Vikings, or I want to go to the Detroit Lions. The Browns could ship him off to the New England Patriots.
Anywhere.
Yeah, and he could be in the same spot, or he may be even worse, because the Browns are under no obligation to dictate where he gets traded to. If he wants traded, the Browns, their job, the franchise's job, and their job to the fans is get as much as you can for that player. And
so if they come to him and say, hey, best we're going to probably get is Minnesota, and Minnesota's a 1-for-1 exactly where we're at, he might be like, yep.
Minnesota's really good this year. Now,
but if hypothetically, if it's a 1-for-1, then he might be like, all right, well, I'm in for another year.
Now, the one thing with Minnesota that's intriguing, their general manager was the assistant general manager under Andrew Berry before. So his name's like Kobe. I'm going to butcher his name. Kobe, his first name's Kobe. We'll just leave it at that. But he is the Minnesota Vikings general manager. He's got an interesting decision to make too. He's got a young quarterback. It's like, do you play that young quarterback? Do you go with a veteran who had a really good year by all accounts? Or do you go all in and say, we'll give up our young quarterback, we'll give up a first rounder this year and maybe a second rounder next year for the best defensive player in the league, and that makes both teams better right away? I don't know. I mean, that's for them to decide. And I mean, we're talking February 4th. The draft's like 10, 11 weeks away. So they have some time. You don't have to pull the trigger on this now. There's no football outside of the Super Bowl being played.
Oh, you have a great draft. It might be a completely different story.
Yeah. If you nail a couple of those picks, if you bring in the right pieces, you could be competitive. I do not think this Browns team is going to compete for a Super Bowl. And again, you have to get the quarterback position right. I don't care if you have the best defense of all time. If you got Brandon Whedon back there, or Johnny Manziel back there, or a bad Deshaun Watson back there, you're not going anywhere. You might make it to the playoffs, but you're not going anywhere.
So I don't know how on my social media that I got subscribed to every conspiracy Browns page that's out there. But the Deshaun Watson and the dance that he did on New Year's Eve, where he ruptured Achilles on a second time, gave me hope that contract was going to be nullified and we're going to be away from him. Like, what has happened in that story?
Yeah, there is some language in the contract where if he gets injured doing like non-football related things, the Browns have some like insurance baked into the contract where I believe, some of that you get some cap relief there. I think they still have to pay him the money regardless, but I think some of that money would come off of the cap. Someone smarter than me that knows the salary cap better would be able to give you an exact answer, but I believe that would really help the Browns, where you could maybe void part of that contract or you could get out of it sooner.
So you think that Deshaun Watson is dead on the roster? He's going to pay some expense on his contract, but he will not play another down.
I think at this point, physically, I don't think he can play next year, because an ACL is generally like an 8 to 12 month recovery time. Or I'm sorry, not an ACL. An Achilles is usually like an ACL. You could probably be back in 6 to 8 months now. So he could have been ready for the preseason, and if it was an ACL, but an Achilles, that's a totally different injury. And you saw Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins came back this year, and they're older. They're much older than Deshaun Watson, but they started the year really slow. And by Aaron Rodgers, he was just really slow the entire year. He was not himself. So the Achilles is nothing to be messed with. So I don't think Deshaun Watson plays at all in 2025. In 2026, who knows? But I think the Browns need to just cut ties with him regardless. And it's like, if you're going to be bad too, who cares if you eat the money and then
free the roster,
you free your roster, and then that money clears up then in a few years after that. And, maybe by the time you're ready to be good again, you got all this money to go out and get whatever.
But that contract's going to haunt us forever. I think we're still paying Romeo Crennel.
It was a crippling contract for the Browns. So, it's funny because the whole thing is Myles Garrett requests a trade, but it really all goes back to Deshaun Watson's contract, because if he would have just been an average number 15, number 16 quarterback in the NFL, or even 16, 17, you give me Trevor Lawrence performance, the Browns are probably a playoff team. They're probably, I don't know, they're probably at least 9-8 this year. But they're just, bad quarterback play leads to bad performance. And look at the Chiefs. You got Patrick Mahomes. Jalen Hurts Philadelphia is the other way to do it. Philadelphia has built the roster up around Jalen Hurts, and that roster has made him a better quarterback, I think, than he is. But yeah, the Browns don't have that roster to build up an average quarterback right now. So it's like, you got to decide what you're doing. Are you going to go all in and try to get this quarterback, or are you going to build up the roster and then eventually find the right piece? So maybe they go out and get Justin Fields in the offseason and try to build up the roster and supplement it the best they can. And then maybe go after your future quarterback next year. Or do you go out and get Kirk Cousins, who we know is a stopgap? He's going to probably just be your average quarterback. He's not going to be terrible, but he's not going to be good. He's not going to be great. He's going to be somewhere in the middle, which, at the end of the day, maybe that's what you need. I don't know. But the Browns aren't going anywhere without a serviceable to above average quarterback. And that's where we're at.
Your quarterback room. Is there anybody from this year that remains after this year?
I think DTR's got to go. We know what he is. He's got like the worst touchdown to interception ratio in like the history of the NFL. It's like 1 touchdown, 10 or 11 interceptions. And I feel bad for the kid because, he kind of threw him in some bad spots, but
both last year and this year.
Yeah. And he's got some good athletic ability. And we'll always have that win over the Steelers that he had last year. But besides that, not much to show for outside of a few nice runs. I like Jameis Winston a lot. I really do. I think you know what you get with him. And at least the Browns were fun when he was at quarterback. It was a fun guy to root for. I mean, he was throwing for 300-400 yards a game. When he was in there, he made Jerry Jeudy look great. He made Njoku and some of the other wide receivers, Cedric Tillman, who never looked like anything before that, he made him look good. But I don't think Bailey Zappi, do you bring him back as your third quarterback? I don't know. But I don't think the quarterback is on this. If anybody, I think maybe Bailey Zappi comes back as your third quarterback next year, and you bring in a veteran and draft a young guy. And I see people out there saying Will Howard, and I love Ohio State like just about more than any other thing. And by the way, being an Ohio State fan and winning this national title, I think my punishment for being an Ohio State fan is being a Browns fan as well, because it's just have good Saturdays but bad Sundays. But
well, continue that thought. Will Howard comes in, he's your draft. He doesn't do well with his offense.
Like, I mean, look at Will Howard and what he had at Ohio State. Like, you had 2 stud running backs. You have the best receiver in college football. You got another receiver that's going to be a second round or first round pick in Ibuka. Like I said, the best receiver with Jeremiah Smith. And you had a great defense, like the best defense in college football. And it's like he had all the pieces around him. Will Howard is a nice quarterback. I think he's a great leader. I don't think he's more than like a 4th round draft pick, maybe a 3rd round draft pick. And we know like some of those guys pan out, but most of them don't. But I mean, I don't think I wouldn't mind taking a risk on him in the 3rd or 4th round, but like he's not like the franchise savior in my mind. So it's like, if I like the best thing for Will Howard would be to go to a really good team and be a backup quarterback, as opposed to going to the Browns and maybe having to be thrown into the fire and start on a bad team where the Ohio State Buckeyes could never beat the Cleveland. Like the best version of the Buckeyes could never beat a really bad NFL team. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, because the worst players on a pro team are still the best players on a college team.
Well, if you take Will Howard and you outfit him with the same offense that he's used to on with 2 good running backs, you got Jerry Jeudy out there, whatever.
Yeah, right. Yeah, if you gave him some weapons and a serviceable offensive line, I think he could be a decent quarterback. I don't think he would be a great quarterback, but I love what he did at Ohio State, but look at Justin Fields, what he did. He was a great quarterback at Ohio State, but that did not translate so far to the pro level, because honestly, some of his weapons at Ohio State were better than what he's had in the pros. So it is what it is. I don't know. I hope we'll have plenty of time to see where Will Howard might go in the next couple months, but I think he's probably earned his way up to a 3rd round draft pick. He's a big guy with a big arm, but he's like pretty accurate, but not like the best deep ball thrower. And he's like mobile, but he's not super athletic, one of those things. So he's not Josh Allen. He's not, Joe Burrow, but maybe he's like somewhere in like, trying to think of a big bodied quarterback. That's like I can't even come up with a comp for him right now. Maybe like, because people would say like he's got the build of a Josh Allen, but he doesn't have that huge arm that Josh Allen has, and he's not as mobile as Josh Allen. So maybe someone like, oh man, I'd have to scour the NFL, but he'd be a serviceable NFL quarterback. I'll just say that. I don't know where he will go.
Not somebody for a first round, 2nd pick of the draft.
No. And I'm not even sure if Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders or Jackson Dart would be one of those guys either. But I think when you're at this spot where you have the 2nd pick in the draft, if there is a quarterback they fall in love with, I think you probably have to take them, because...
Or you take your 2nd pick, you trade it for 2 2nd round picks, and you load up. Do it. Come on, I know you want to.
2 2nd rounders?
A deeper 1st round pick in the 2nd round.
Okay, maybe. But like, do you remember? Okay, so let's go back to, and we got about 5 minutes left, but let's go back to 2016. The Browns had the 2nd pick in the draft. The Philadelphia Eagles had the 8th pick in the draft, and it was Jared Goff and it was Carson Wentz. Those were the 2 top quarterbacks. The Browns didn't really like either one of them. Jared Goff went 1, Carson Wentz went 2, but the Browns traded back with the Eagles and they got the 8th pick, and they got a 3rd round pick, and they got a 4th round pick. They got a 1st rounder the following year, and they got a 2nd rounder 2 years, from then. That would be a nice haul. But then the Browns, if you remember in that 2016 draft, which probably not many people remember, they actually traded that 8th pick back. Tennessee went up and took Jack Conklin with that 8th pick. The Browns took Corey Coleman with the 15th pick
Oh, he
in
was
that draft.
awesome. Like,
That was maybe I would put Corey Coleman up there with Justin Gilbert and
that
Johnny
changed me.
Manziel and Jed Wills and some of the really
Brandon
bad.
Whedon, that would be one that's on the list.
Yeah,
ones that make my heart
but again,
burn.
like if you're picking in the 20s, like those guys aren't locks. Like if you're picking in number 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, that guy has to start for you next year. Like before the season starts, that guy has to start for you. If you're not a very good football team. So let me just ask you this. On February 4th, 1, do they trade Myles Garrett?
Yes.
I think so too. 2, do they keep the second pick or do they trade it?
They trade it.
I think they trade it too. So we think there's multiple trades coming for the Cleveland Browns. So as the world turns with the Cleveland Browns, we have a lot. We have a lot to discuss over the next few weeks and months as that comes, but we will get to that. All right, real quick, because I don't know if we're going to do a Thursday show or not, but let's go through the Super Bowl lines real quick. Because so this is a matchup of 2 years ago from the Super Bowl. What is it? 59, Super Bowl 59 this year. So it's a matchup of Super Bowl 57. Kansas City, Philadelphia, Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs are going for a three-peat. They are a 1.5 point favorite. I think you're getting a little bit of Patrick Mahomes tax on the line. I personally think the Eagles should be favored, but being the line so close, I would just take the underdog with the points or the favorite with the money line. So the Chiefs are 1.5 point favorites. Who are you picking in this game?
I'm going Eagles.
You're going Eagles.
I'm going Eagles.
I have learned, and I've learned the hard way, to not bet against Patrick Mahomes, number 15. And last year, I thought the 49ers would beat him. Didn't. I thought the Eagles would beat him 2 years ago. Didn't.
They are a different team.
So you know what I'm going to say? Third time's a charm. I'm going with the Philadelphia Eagles too. I'm not the one that like dislikes Taylor. I like Taylor Swift. I think I like the Travis Kelce's from Ohio. I think that's cool. I think Patrick Mahomes is one of the best. But
what'd you think of the quote from Kareem Hunt, by the way?
I didn't read that. No.
He was very complimentary, and he was a little critical of the Browns. He wanted nothing, he wanted nothing more than to deliver them some kind of Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But I'm really happy for that dude.
I'm happy for him too. And he's a Cleveland guy. And he was with the Chiefs to start his career, had an off the field incident. The Browns brought him back in. He kind of recouped his career. And looks like the Browns probably should have brought him back this year, but I'm sure he's very happy with where he's at. Yeah. He is actually, let me look real quick at the line. He is actually has the 4th best odds to score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. So it's Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, Travis Kelce, and then Kareem Hunt have the best odds to win a Super Bowl. So can I give you a one wild stat here?
Sure.
Okay. So since the year 2002, and this is the 2002, 2003, 2006, 2009, 2013, 2015, 2019, and then last year, 2024, 8 times since 2022, a team has traveled east to go to the Super Bowl and a team has traveled west to go to the Super Bowl. In all 8 instances, the team traveling west has won. The Super Bowl is in New Orleans, which means Philadelphia will travel west, Kansas City will travel southeast. So by that logic, Philadelphia wins the Super Bowl.
Perfect.
Yeah. I know you like weird stuff like that. So,
$100, Philadelphia, bank it.
Joe and I are going to take Philadelphia, which probably means bet Kansas City, but you know what?
Take the points, baby.
Do what you want.
Them.
Yeah. And you might as well take, I think there's only been 1 or 2 Super Bowls that it's actually like been within a point. So I would just say, if you like Philadelphia, take the 1.5. If you like Kansas City, just take the money line. That would be my best advice. The total is 48.5 in this game.
It's gonna be a good one.
I like the over. It's just more fun to root for points. So I'm gonna take Philadelphia in the over. And I like Saquon Barkley anytime touchdown. He is -190. So you got to lay 190 to win 100 or $19 to win 10. So what do you think? Who scores a touchdown in this game? Anybody? So I'll give you the 6 top guys.
Okay.
Saquon Barkley's number 1, minus 190.
Okay.
Jalen Hurts, the quarterback, minus 115. And then A.J. Brown, the receiver for them, is plus 180. That's for the Philadelphia Eagles. For the Chiefs, Kelsey's plus 125. Kareem Hunt's plus 145. And James Worthy's plus 150.
I'm going to go with Kareem Hunt.
I figured you might go Hunt.
But that's low.
You like the Eagles.
I do.
But you think Kareem Hunt scores a touchdown.
We're just doing Eagles. I'm going Barkley.
Okay. All right. Well, you could do both.
Okay, Barkley Hunt.
So you got your parlay. You got a 3-leg parlay there. You got the Eagles to win, money line. You got plus 1.5. You got Barkley to score, minus 190, and Hunt to. So right there, that's going to pay. That'll probably pay at least 3-1. So why not go for it? So throw $20 on it, and maybe you win 60 on it, or throw more. Whoever. MVP Mahomes plus 110. He's the favorite. Barkley's second plus 280. Jalen Hurts plus 350. I would say. Either if you think the Eagles are going to win, pick Saquon Barkley. If you think the Chiefs are going to win, take Mahomes. That would be mine. And then, we'll just leave it at that. So give me a score prediction. 48.5 is the over under. Give me a score.
Just the over under or what
total? So give me your score prediction.
All right.
So you think the Eagles win. So what's the score?
28-24.
Okay, so you are on the over then, 52. I like that score. I think there's some like weird scores in these type of games. So just because I like to root for points too, I'm going to say Eagles 33.
Oh, you're going high. Love
Kansas City 27. So what is that? 60. So I'm well over. I'm 12 points over. So 33-27 Philadelphia. Patrick Mahomes probably has the ball late and probably will win, but we'll see. But either way, that's our predictions. There's plenty more we have to get to, but we're gonna shelf that for next week. I wanted to get to Ryan Day and make you fill out an apology form for you and BJ, but for wavering on my my
Fire him, get rid of that bum.
But he totally redeemed himself. So
I love him again.
Love it. So for Joe, I'm Justin. Hopefully you guys learned something, and hopefully you got some ideas on what the Browns should do, because I think they need some help, frankly. So for Joe, I'm Justin. BJ's in the back. We appreciate you watching. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe. Youngstown Studio, 330 Sports Show. We will see you guys soon.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook. Thank you for your support.